Friends, happy Sunday. And welcome to worship here in the sanctuary, the historic sanctuary of the Fountain Street Church in Grand Rapids, Michigan. My name is Nathan Dannison. I will be leading us in worship. And before we go any further, I want to thank you again for your patience with our temporary lighting and sound setup. Okay, I think we're okay. I don't want to get too loud before. Oh, I'm still getting some echo there. We can bring that back a little bit. Okay. We are coming in on the very tail end of this restoration process. They are completely replacing all of the sound and lighting in this space, and it should be ready by next Sunday. And so thank you for your patience while we do that. I also want to thank all of the AVL technicians who brought in the temporary lighting and sound, who've been dealing with this and making it possible for us to worship in here over the last couple of weeks this summer, especially Cale Clements and his team. Can we show our appreciation for that team? The new lighting and sound system will be ready to launch next Sunday, just in time for Celebration Sunday. This is going to be next Sunday when we welcome the choir back here. I know they've been rehearsing, and I know that these first early choir rehearsals are also open houses for folks to come and learn more about that program. The choir is a big group. They are a little rambunctious, but their hearts are in the right place. They're great people. They're good. So, and we are also delighted to have Dr. Emmanuel De Leon Jr. Returning to conduct again this year with that choir too. One of the finest and most historic choral programs in this part of the country. So if you are even a little bit tempted, I encourage you to come to a rehearsal, give it a try, check out the choir, no pressure, but I think that you will find that it's a great place to spend your time. So this, as I said, this coming Sunday is next Sunday, September 7th, is Celebration Sunday, the return of the choir. And so this Sunday is our final summer music series Sunday. And today, in worship with us today, we have violinist Darren Chan, who you just heard from, and vocalist Catherine Gispert as well. And in a moment, we'll also hear from singer, songwriter, music educator Ren Burns. And so thank you three wonderful performers for being with us as well. Ren Burns uses they, them pronouns, and I want to specifically thank them for sharing an original song with us today and another phenomenal Woody Guthrie tune, which is so great for Labor Day. This is Labor Day, and this is a church that has historically done its very best to show solidarity with the labor organizing community. I also want to thank them for singing specifically about immigrants this week. I know that this coming Saturday, many of you are joining local community organizing groups to travel to Baldwin, just north of here, again to protest against the internment facility at North Lake, that wretched camp where they are now imprisoning hundreds of innocent people. Folks from throughout the area will be joining with other organizers, groups like No Detention Michigan, Communities Not Cages, Cosecha from right here in Grand Rapids, to carry light into that very dark place and continue to shine that light and hold accountable the government and all those who have reopened that North Lake facility there in Baldwin. And we want to be mindful of that, especially today on Labor Day when labor is under assault. So this work that we're about here at Fountain Street Church is a work of peace. It's about filling our own cup. It's about shining light, but it's about building peace in real and tangible ways. And we acknowledge and celebrate that practice at the beginning of our worship service by sharing a word of peace. I'll offer a word of peace to you, and you can return it to me if you wish, and then I want to encourage you to share words of peace and welcome with each other. Friends, peace be with you. Thank you. Let's go ahead and greet each other with words of peace. Amen. I want to invite all of the children who are here this morning to come down front and join me up here on the steps. If you're a child, you can join me. You can bring your grown-up with you if you want to. It's your call. Come forward and join me, and we'll just have a quick word before character school and further Sunday adventures. Good morning. Hey. All right. Good morning. This is exciting. I hope you guys are having a cool Labor Day weekend. I know we are. Good morning. All right. Hello, good morning, welcome. Man, there's something missing this morning. There was like this, I came in here this morning looking for something. It was like a big green thing and it was gone. I couldn't remember what it was. Does anybody remember what it was? Something was here? It was the big crane. Yeah, the big crane is gone. They took it back. I know. They said we couldn't keep it. I know. I'd planned to preach. I was going to preach give a sermon on the crane, and they said no, I wasn't certified, and so I couldn't do that and everything. But I'll tell you something cool that I did this week, though, that was really exciting. So you guys probably don't get to see this very much, but a lot of the time during the week when you're at school, I'm here at the church. And mainly I take a lot of naps, but when I'm not doing that, I walk around the building and just make sure that everything is as it should be. And I get to see some people in here and around the building walking around with tools and hammers and equipment, and they're usually wearing hard hats. Do you know who those people are? Can you think of? Construction workers, exactly, yeah, construction workers. There was construction workers in here all week long, and they were tuning some speakers. They just put in 34 new speakers, something like that, here in the sanctuary. I know, and they're super cool. And they were playing some Stevie Ray Vaughan music in the sanctuary, really, really loud. I think they could probably hear it at Westminster. They were tuning the new speakers. And then there were some other construction workers who were on the front of the building, and they were taking the doors off the church. They were taking the doors off the church. Have you ever seen the two big doors that are on the front of the church? They're huge. They're like 18 feet tall. I don't know. Apparently they're the biggest doors in the city of Grand Rapids. I don't know, so I learned that too. They had to take them off and take them away, and they're going to go clean them and put them back. So this week I was watching these construction workers work, and I was really grateful for the things that they did, because that's all stuff that I can't do. And I know that some of you have told me that you want to grow up and become construction workers and builders. And I know my kids like building things with Legos and things like that. This weekend is Labor Day, and it's a day that we set aside to thank people who work with their hands, who build things, and who help build this country, and who help build this building. And it's when we set aside some time to show them that we appreciate them and that we're grateful for them. So I was hoping this week, when I would be driving around or looking at buildings or here at the church or doing my stuff, that I would remember to be grateful for builders. And I think that was what I was hoping our blessing could be today, to be grateful for builders. So let's share a blessing, and then you can make your way to character school and just follow the big banner. But go ahead and raise a hand, and then just repeat after me. This week, we will be grateful for the builders. Okay, wonderful. Y'all can make your way to character school if you want. Follow the sparkly banner and make your way out.
Good morning. From the Hebrew Bible, the book of prophet Jeremiah, chapter 2. Hear the word of the Lord, O house of Jacob, and all the families of the house of Israel.
What wrong did your ancestors find in me, that they went far from me? and chased after worthless things.
I brought you into a plentiful land to eat its fruits and its good things. But when you entered, you defiled my land and made my heritage an abomination.
The priests did not say, "Where is the Lord?"
Those who handled the law did not know me.
The rulers transgressed against me.
The prophets prophesied by Baal and chased after worthless things.
Has the nation changed its gods, even though they are not gods at all?
Be appalled, O heavens, at this. Be shocked. Be utterly desolate. For my people have committed two evils.
They have forsaken me and the fountain of living water.
And they have dug out cisterns for themselves.
Cracked cisterns that can hold no water.
Fountain Street Church, good morning. Let us take a moment in silence and meditation to calm our hearts and our spirits and be present. Let my hands be for healing, my words for hope. Over the course of my career, I've had countless very deep and valuable conversations with people who are in the process of healing from trauma that was inflicted on them by churches and by organized religion specifically. And many of these people were introduced to what we call toxic theology or cheap theology and ideology, many of them as children. And I know that that describes the circumstances for quite a few of the folks in this room. They are looking to be filled with something new, but if there are still cracks in that cistern, there's still healing that needs to be done. Unless the cracks are repaired first, the heart can't hold the water that they're seeking. I believe that people can heal from trauma. I believe that this is possible. I reject therapeutic nihilism. I very specifically am married to a person who is a healer, who's a psychologist, literally a soul doctor. In the same way, I know it's possible to rewire the brain to learn a new language or to learn a new skill. I know it's possible for people to heal from religious trauma. And then, if they choose to either move on with their lives or turn and then with an open hand take the hand of the next injured person who is seeking help. So as I said, I reject all forms of therapeutic nihilism, the idea that people are inoperably broken, ever. But most especially, I reject this in the field of psychology. I think that healing is possible. And I even believe, and I've sort of put all of my chips on this, I believe that community, building community, is a kind of strong medicine itself, and that community can be a form of treatment for mending souls. It makes sense to me that desperate people would listen to bad preachers. It makes sense to me that desperate people would put their trust in untrained ministers and in charlatans and the voices they hear on TV. And it makes sense that people would do these things even though I have never personally been a part of a fundamentalist church or anything like that, or any kind of cheap religion. I've felt despair in my life, and I've felt the water of life draining out of me. And I've listened to the tempting words of my own dark angel sitting there on my shoulder, encouraging me to abandon hope for healing. And I can imagine grasping for anything that promises just even a moment of relief. But the people who I've met on my journey, the people who have trusted me with their stories of toxic religion, bringing with them cracked cisterns, they've sometimes come to me looking for some kind of truth with a capital T about the Bible that I can't give them. One of the most pernicious and in my opinion evil tricks that religionists peddle about the Bible is that it somehow describes actual history, facts about history, that it can tell us anything at all about the way that things used to be. And so sometimes people who are trying to recover from religious trauma want to know very specific things, like what is the oldest translation of the Bible, right? Or what does the Bible really say about this thing or that thing or the other thing? And as much as I want to give them a material roadmap about the sort of facts on the ground or the way things really happened, that is not what religious texts are for. It's not what they do, and it's not why they were selected by our ancestors to be holy books in the first place. They're holy books because they are trying to use an inadequate symbolic tool, which is human language, to describe transcendent and indescribable things that are beyond describing with language. So I don't have a good metaphor for the metaphor. It's kind of it gets to the ontology of language. Trying to read the Bible literally is like, I've said in the past, trying to read it literally is like trying to eat a recipe. or it's like trying to live, like trying to live inside a blueprint. Jorge Borges is one of my favorite writers, and he wrote a brilliant short story called On Exactitude in Science. And it describes this fictional empire that was obsessed with cartographic precision, maps. The empire, they use all of their money to create a map, a map that is a one-to-one map of the world, right? A map of the world that is so precise that it's the size of the world. And it's ridiculous. It ends in tears. Because the map is not the territory. Whether you believe that the Bible is using mundane language to describe a transcendent God, or you sort of join me in taking a more anthropological perspective, that ancient texts are using mundane language to describe some transcendent human experience. In any case, the map is not the territory. And so pity the poor humans who are so obsessed with following the rules that they attempt to draw a map from this thing on a one-to-one scale. It will end in tears. They waste their talents. And when you put them in a pulpit, they hurt other people. The map is not the territory. There's no ancient secrets or magic spells in here. There's only words on paper. But there are words of warning and words of comfort and even words of hope. So prophet Jeremiah, this word that we just heard, is a good example. I think perhaps the best example of this. The material history of the book of Jeremiah is all over the place. It contains probably 100 different voices and cultures. And some of the poetry in the book is probably 3,000 years old, and some of it's probably 2,000 years old. And a lot happens over the course of 1,000 years. It's mixed together like rainwater in a river. And today, it is talking about cisterns, cracked cisterns. Have you ever seen a cistern? It's like a big, in my mind, it's like a big ceramic pot buried in the earth. And its purpose is to hold water for the dry seasons. It's a habit to think about cisterns like they're these fixed objects that are kind of like stationary things that dug into the dirt, like a permanent hole in the ground. But an empty cistern, if it's allowed to dry out, it will float on the earth, like a boat popping up out of the water. It's dangerous. During natural disasters, if there's a flood or a hurricane or something, cisterns will lift up out of the ground and wash away with everything else. This was understood by the people who lived in the Mediterranean and wrote the poetry that's in the book of Jeremiah. They knew that the soil around a cistern would shift and change with the seasons, and it could happen quite quickly, and a dry cistern would crack and rupture. And if it was left that way, it could even collapse like an eggshell in a fist. A cistern must never be allowed to dry out. Jeremiah sees empty cisterns, cracked cisterns. The human heart has to be filled with water, lest it crack and be crushed. But what fills the cistern of the human heart? I think the writers of Jeremiah knew that the heart is filled with love and hope, and love is the surplus labor of human community. We are seeing today, and we have always seen, and we know the effects of cracked cisterns. We see a broken person taking a weapon, a gun, and in a moment of unthinkable evil, setting their sights on children in a room praying in Minneapolis. And we're seeing armed patrols of brown shirts in our cities, now backed up by state militias. And a quarter of our nation is glued to right-wing media, waiting to be fed their next outrage, filling their cistern with something bad for them, waiting to be told how to think, waiting to be told who they're supposed to hate next. These dried cisterns, they're cracking under pressure. And the result has become the wholesale targeting of the stranger, of the poor, of the outcast. The rage is directed toward minorities. Today, it is especially directed toward transgender people and immigrants. This is the cost of a cracked cistern. These are the wages of sin and the compensation of false gods, and it leads to death. The words of prophet Jeremiah ask, have the people changed their gods, even though they are not gods at all? Have people changed their gods? Have Americans changed their gods? I think absolutely they have. I'll leave it to you to decide whether the current god of America is the dollar or the gun. Neither of these things will save the soul of this country. Cracked cisterns. And what cracks the cistern is alienation, abuse, despair, isolation, or nihilism, dressed up and peddled as self-sufficiency or celebrity or wealth, the promises of mammon. Like a vessel filled up with empty promises, the heart is filled with nothing good or healthy. So I'll take just one example that I just spoke about. I think that we're all aware of what has become of our sick brothers and sisters who consume nothing but right-wing media in this country. Would that they would listen to music, any music, or baseball games, right? On the AM radio. Used to do that. Or books on tape, or whatever. But they open their ears and their eyes to Fox News and to One America News, and they open their hearts like cisterns waiting to be filled, and they are then filled with raw, visceral rage that flows out of them through the cracks like poison out of a sieve. Undifferentiated and confused, they walk out into a perfectly beautiful world filled with the miracle of human love, filled with the endless diversity of America, filled with beauty. And they have filled their cistern with hatred and fear and are so sick in their soul that they see nothing but danger around them. And the way they talk about our American cities, this country has some of the most beautiful cities on earth. Each of them is a miracle. American cities, and now American cities, are safer than they've ever been in the history of this country. Americans who live in the city are now twice as safe as Americans who live in rural places, and they talk about our cities like they're war zones. That's religion. That's a religion that does that to people. And they kneel before the altar of outrage media, and they worship Rupert Murdoch and his cotillion of howling idiots. So what do we do? What can we do? What can I do? Because my cistern has cracks in it. It needs repair. I need help. And that's okay, because remember what I said. I don't believe in therapeutic nihilism. There are two things needed. Always two things needed. Because I know I need to repair the cracks in my heart, but I also need it to be filled with something, the water of life. I need it to be filled with good water if I'm going to survive and be useful out there. So first, stop damaging it in the first place. Has the people changed its gods for false gods? I have to be careful where I invest my worship, where I choose to invest my time, my worship, my hope, and yes, my salvation. Because even though I'm not likely to leave this place and get in my car and tune into Fox News Radio or whatever, I certainly fall prey to worshiping some other pernicious little god that promises to save me, whether it's money or celebrity or beauty or respect or a million other things. These things can't save me, and they certainly won't heal the cracks in my cistern. So I need to be able to practice the golden rule. I won't love my neighbor if I don't learn to love myself. So I take my cracks and injuries and wounds to healers, because I'm not afraid to ask for help when I need it. So I'll take my wounds to therapists or physicians, or I'll describe what I'm going through to ministers, to my minister, who I can trust. Please, if you get nothing else from this, don't ever trust a minister who doesn't have a minister, okay? Like trusting a doctor that doesn't believe in medicine. We'll put them in charge of Health and Human Services, I guess. Yeah. Well, take my problems to healers and listen to them. And I do my own damn work. And I confess that what I'm most often counseled to do is rest. And for reasons that have evaded me for 2 decades, Sabbath is a thing that remains just beyond the reach of my grasp, but I'm working on it. And then the second thing needed is to fill the cistern with good water. And my good water is found in 2 places, in the wilderness and in the city. And those are metaphors, but the wilderness and the city. I go to the wilderness to be washed clean, and then I go to the city to find my people, my beloved community. And I allow myself to be knit together with other humans, finding an abundance of good and holy water. And I think that's what I was made for. It's true that it is harder to build than to destroy. And Jeremiah knows this. Prophet Jeremiah sees people that are wounded in much the same way that people we know and love today are wounded, walking around cracked cisterns. Anything that is good is poured into them, is poured right back out again, and the risk is that the vessel will collapse, and it's dangerous. And so we build, because it's harder to build. It's harder to build. We build beloved community here at Fountain Street. Here in this corner of the city, a fountain of good water, in a city built by a river that flows into a great freshwater sea. We'll build a place where people can go to be filled with hope and mercy and grace, and where we are not bound by the rules of some toxic religious doctrine or dogma that requires people to prove that they're worthy before they can join us in building something. And interestingly, the thing being built here at Fountain Street appears to be capable of healing the traumas inflicted by other churches who perhaps worship other darker gods. So we'll fill each other's cup. We'll do this every time that we look at each other with love and with charity and grace and forbearance. We'll do this every time that we learn another person's name and speak it aloud to them. Do this every time we listen to each other's stories. We'll do this when we gather together with a common purpose, not just in worship and celebration, but also in committee meetings and in recovery groups and reading circles and poetry groups and organizing for justice and organizing for hope and healing and 1,000 other things. This is the way the waters meet and flow together into a fountain of life. Repair the cracks. I will repair the cracks in my cistern. Repair the cracks because it's possible. It is always possible to heal. And then fill the cistern with living water. Fill the cistern with water that you can then carry out there into the world. By doing so, you will become more than healthy. You'll become more than healed. You'll become a water carrier and a healer for the world. A living oasis. Become a healer, I think which is the highest and best calling and responsibility. The highest purpose. To be a healer sent by healers into a broken world, bearing the cup of good water to the weak and wounded. I see it happening. I see it happening. This is what's happening. It's very good. And it is saving lives every single day. Amen.
The peaches were gathered, oranges packed in their creosote bins. They flew them all back to the Mexico border. They took all their money to get back again. Said farewell to their friends, goodbye to their neighbors. Adios, mis amigos, Jesus y Maria. No one had a name when they flew that big aeroplane. All that they called them was just deportees. The sky plane caught fire over Los Gatos Canyon. The fireball lit up and it shook the hills round. Oh, who were those friends that were scattered like dry leaves? The radio said they were just deportees. So farewell to our friends, goodbye to my neighbors. Adios, mis amigas. The child from my son's class, you won't have a name when you fly the plane. All they will call you will be deportees. Is this the best way to till our good orchards? Is this the best way to grow our good fruit? Lie on the ground and to rot on the topsoil and never know name except farewell to my friends, goodbye to my neighbors, adios mis amigos. To the young postal worker, you won't have a name when you fly the Avello plane. All they will call you will be deportee. They call some illegal when they are not wanted. Their visas are canceled and forced to move on. 1,500 miles to the Mexican border. A line carved across stolen river and land. So farewell to our friends, goodbye to our neighbors, adios mis amigas. Goodbye to abuela, you won't have a name when you fly the Avello plane. All they will call you will be deportee. So farewell to our friends, goodbye to our neighbors, adios mis amigos. Goodbye to my comrade, I'll never forsake you when you're sent to North Lake. A name, not a number, never just deportees.
I want to invite Ren to stay here for a moment and continue singing, and I will also invite our ushers to come forward and receive any gifts or offerings or donations you brought today to support the work of Fountain Street Church, and thank you.
Back the water, take back the sea, take back the east that blows so gently in the breeze, take back the power in each your own hand, take back the time it needs to let it rise again, take back the flower, take back the seed. Take back the mill we turn to grind down all we need. Take back the labor in each your own arm. Take back the vessel where we carry what we farm. Know when to need and when to wait and let it rise and let it rise. Know when to need. Take back the fire, take back the stone, take back the warmth we need for hungry sour home. Take back the means by which we feed hungry men. Always enough and not afraid to start again. The need and wait and let it rise, and now we rise and work and heed and let it rise, and now we rise and work and heed and let it rise, and now we rise. See us rise, now we rise.
Friends, as you depart from this place to support one another and be healers out there in this world, I hope that you remember to take with you the light, the hope that you have received from this place and share it with those you meet. We are all in need of healing, and all of us are in need of restoration. And then return here again with all that you've learned. Return here again. We'll continue building something incredible this year. Friends, depart in love and peace. Amen.